When you load a modern web page, you interact with a shifting interface. But to understand what drives those updates, we must look past the browser. There is a physical and logical gap between the device in your hands and the remote servers storing the data you request. Your browser alone cannot do the heavy lifting of retrieving databases or verifying secure passwords. This diagram outlines that exact data flow, and right here in the middle is PHP. It acts as the server-side engine, grabbing raw requests and processing the necessary data before sending standard HTML back to your screen. Learning this language means moving beyond styling the surface of a web page. You are learning to control the hidden logic that decides what users actually get to see. Here is our code environment. To start giving the server instructions, we need strict boundaries. Every piece of PHP code must be written directly between these opening and closing PHP tags. Once inside those tags, our primary way to push a value or text out to the screen is by using an echo statement. Looking at this split screen, you'll notice a strict rule of the language. On the left, the code fails. On the right, it runs perfectly. The only difference is the semicolon at the end of the line. Every single statement needs to end with one. These punctuation marks provide the specific boundary for each instruction. They ensure the PHP engine processes every command in the exact sequence you've written it. In this line of code, we are creating a variable. In PHP, variables always start with a $sign, directly followed by the name you assign to it. To load information into that variable, we use a standard equal sign, followed by the value itself. Unlike several other languages, you do not have to declare what type of data the variable is going to hold. The engine figures out whether it's a number or a text string automatically. Here we see two separate numeric variables defined. The engine seamlessly processes them together to calculate and output the sum of 30. This dynamic handling of data types gives PHP immense flexibility. It allows developers to rapidly process user inputs and database queries on the fly without writing extra code to define data formats. When you have large sets of related information, storing them one by one is inefficient. Instead, we use arrays. The data is contained completely inside these square brackets, with each element separated by a comma. By default, PHP organizes these elements by assigning them an automatic numeric index, starting exactly at 0 and counting up. To isolate and use a specific piece of data, we call its index number inside another set of square brackets. We can also build associative arrays. Instead of relying on a sequential number sequence, we assign exact string indexes, or text-based labels, to each value. Associative arrays mirror real-world data structures perfectly. In a user profile, labels like email and username point directly to their specific values. Step 1 to making our application react to information is setting up a conditional statement. The primary tool for this is the if statement. Looking at this snippet, the exact condition we are testing is contained strictly inside these highlighted parentheses. We use a comparison operator to check if two values relate to each other in a specific way. If that condition proves to be true, the engine moves down into the block of code wrapped inside the curly braces and runs those commands. Notice that this specific block of code does not need to be followed by a semicolon. And while developers use indentation and spacing to make it readable, those blank spaces don't alter the logic itself. By establishing these conditional paths, a static script gains the ability to make decisions. It evaluates the data it receives and chooses the correct response based on your rules. When dealing with large arrays, we need a way to process them efficiently. This diagram illustrates a Foreach loop. It systematically cycles through an array's data. The engine guarantees that the code block within the loop will execute exactly once for every single element present in that array. As we loop through data, we often need to combine it. Here, you see how we use a dot as a concatenation operator to stitch independent strings and variables together into a single, clean output phrase. Looping through sets of information and concisely concatenating the results are the required steps to package complex server data into a format the end user can read. Combining variables to store data, arrays to organize it, and loops to process it, we move from writing single lines to building functional programs. These basic tools are the primary mechanism for handling data that flows between a server and a user. While the formatting rules are strict, adhering to the required syntax gives you the capacity to scale a simple text output into a more complex web application. You now have a working mental model of how PHP operates under the hood.